I'm going to talk to you about Mars, Mars One. For the last 7 months, I've been a global business advisor to the Mars One space program. Who here knows Mars One? Okay, so why would a guy like me, there we go. Why would a guy like me get involved with a program like this? Well, let me tell you what. I have gone all around the world as a motivational speaker, and people are dreamers. Every single country I go to, I can tell you the universal currency, people dream. People want to imagine things grander than they are. And that's part of what the magic of the space program is. And we're going to the next slide now. There we go. So not only are people dreamers, people are explorers. I think it's actually written into the DNA of who we are as human beings. Everything we do is reaching beyond, looking for something more. So the neat thing, if you look at this space program, it goes beyond culture. It goes beyond ethnicity. So back in 1492, Christopher Columbus was probably our first spaceman, and he went across from Europe and he discovered North America. Not 411 years later, the Wright brothers, space flight, another huge moment in mankind's story. And then, just a couple of decades later, the sound barrier was broken. Chuck Yeager, I had the great pleasure of meeting Chuck Yeager earlier this year. Chuck Yeager broke the speed of sound in a jet aircraft, an extraordinary thing. And then, just a little bit after that, a guy that you probably all know, JFK, said, we will go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because those goals will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and our skills. And that is what the space program is all about. So, he said we're going to go to the moon. Why the moon? Well, the moon has been central to the human love story for as long as mankind has been here. We've looked up to the stars, we've looked up to the moon, so he said we're going to go to the moon. Plus, it was the closest thing he could reach. So mankind created enormous industries, and they built these fantastic rockets. I've actually seen that rocket. It is huge. They built these huge rockets to send men to the moon, and that's exactly what happened. July 1969, there you go. That, I believe, I'm not sure if that's Neil or Buzz, but I have spoken to Buzz Aldrin. There he is, I think that might be Buzz, on the surface of the moon. So the space race has done something to mankind. It's ignited who we truly are. Then we went about creating reusable spacecraft that could go back into space every few months, delivering enormous telescopes and huge satellites so that we could interconnect our world and explore science in even greater ways. And finally, the International Space Station, probably my favorite of all, where communists and Americans and people from every realm of the world can work side by side under the religion of science and truth. So this has inspired generations of youth to look out and imagine what could be possible for their life, right? What's possible? What could you do? Anything is possible. It's an exciting theme. Ultimately, this comes down to the big question, why go to Mars? Well, it's a great question, right? There's so many things that we could be doing as a species. Why should we be going to Mars? Well, I think we should be going to Mars because it reignites the best of who we are, and it brings us back to those days where Columbus sailed across the oceans in search of what could be possible, and in doing so, charted an entire history that we're now living. So it's time to pay back Columbus. What else did I want to tell you tonight? I wanted to tell you that it elevates our mindset. It wasn't cynicism and conservatism and defeatism that got us to the moon. It wasn't those things that created airplanes. I've been in 28 airports this year alone. That didn't come from people playing it safe. You wouldn't have light bulbs and wireless microphones and smartphones from people playing it safe. We're going because we can. Because people can ask questions that they can't answer. Because we're dreamers. Because we're explorers. Wow. Here's an interesting thing to think about. The first person who's going to walk on Mars is actually alive and walking around right now. That's an interesting thing. So may not be anyone in this crowd, but it might be someone that you know. And we're going because it's who we are, and it's long since time that we should get out there and start being explorers and innovators and pioneers all over again. I think that is possibly my 5 minutes. Is it? Such a challenge. There we go.